Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Outlook for the season for October through January, which takes us into the beginning of 2018. This is Gina McGuire. Over the next several slides, we'll look at our past recent weather and drought conditions, and also our current state of the fuels and the expected weather and fire potential and climate changes as we go through the end of the year. Looking at our recent weather trend, for temperature and precipitation for the last 30 days into September, you can see for temperatures on the left, most temperatures were near to below normal over the eastern half of the Great Basin and above normal over much of Idaho into northern Nevada. Precipitation, however, was well above normal over really much of the Great Basin, with the only exceptions being parts of southern and eastern Utah, which were drier than normal, and also far northwest Nevada. Looking at the overall precipitation for the beginning of the water year from October 1st of last year through the end of September this year, and you can still see over the 12-month period above normal precipitation for western and northern areas, and then near normal precipitation for the rest of the higher terrain of Utah into the Arizona Strip and southern Nevada. There are only small areas of Nevada and Utah that were below normal for the 12-month period. Also, if we look at our historic precipitation over last winter into this spring into early 2017, you can see the record areas of precipitation, which is very significant still over western and northern Nevada into northern Utah and Idaho, and it's these areas in the low elevations where we saw our significant grass crop this year. That played a very important role throughout the fire season, and it will also play a role for fire potential as we go into the fall and early winter months. Looking at our drought monitor and outlook for September, we lost all of our drought due to the precipitation we saw over the last two winters. However, we have seen some areas across Idaho and Utah in the abnormally dry category. However, looking at the outlook on the right, which takes us through the end of the year, we really won't see any large areas of drought developing across the Great Basin, because we will turn into this portion of the year where we see our precipitation start to increase with those cooler temperatures. Now that we've looked at what our weather has done over the last 1 to 12 months, we'll look at our current state of our fuel conditions. First, looking at 10-hour fuel moisture, which is more representative of our finer fuels, we have had some warmer and drier weather recently within the last week. Therefore, our 10-hour fuel moisture has dropped a little more significantly over the western half of the Great Basin and is still very low. Again, it's this fuel model that we'll be looking at as we go into the fall months, considering we still have a significant grass load issue over southern Idaho, northern Utah, and northern Nevada. Looking at our 100-hour fuel moisture, again driest over the western areas of the Great Basin that have been on the drier side, however still have been increasing over the eastern areas that have seen more consistent moisture. Similar trend with our 1,000-hour fuels, we did have some cool and wet systems which brought a couple storms and some high elevation snowfall to Idaho, Wyoming, and the northern portion of Utah in the high elevations, so our 1,000-hour fuel moisture has increased more significantly in those areas. Looking at our current ERCs, for southwest Idaho, the graph on the top right shows the sharp decline due to those colder and wetter systems that moved through over the last few weeks. However, ERCs have been increasing due to this warmer and drier weather and are near normal for the time of year in the lower elevations. Also over western Nevada, where we saw that sharp decline with the cooler weather we saw, didn't see much precipitation in many areas with the exception of a storm or two. We did have a nice rebound for ERCs, again due to those warmer and drier conditions, bringing things back to near normal. Looking at now El Nino and La Nina as we go over the next several months. Here are the climate models. The current conditions are on the far left, so we're in this neutral category, which we have been in for some time. And looking across the graph from left to right, you can see we'll generally stay in this neutral area really for much of the fall into the winter. It's really only into 2018 where we may start to see these ocean temperatures warm, possibly pushing us back into an El Nino eventually, but we still have many more months to go yet, and confidence is pretty low. Now we've looked at our recent weather and our recent and current fuel conditions. Now we'll go into the forecast of what we're expecting for the weather and how that will affect our fire potential going into the next few months. First, looking at our 1-month forecast from the Climate Prediction Center for October, you can see warm temperatures are still generally dominating the west. However, this does not mean we will not have cooler periods where temperatures may be significantly below normal, but for the month as a whole, we may end up above normal. Looking at precipitation, generally equal chances across the Great Basin, but we will see storms move through, really pushing some precipitation to areas over the northern and eastern half of the Great Basin most likely, and keeping the western side of the basin more likely on the drier side. If we look at the 3-month outlook, which takes us from November through January, you can see that the above normal temperatures are now sliding further south into the southwest, but still warm conditions in much of the west. But we do see a more broad return of this above normal precipitation potential as we get later in the winter, especially as we go towards December and January over the northern half of the Great Basin. So again, we may see more precipitation in the north and still possibly drier conditions over the south and west. Now we'll put all these pieces together and come up with our outlook. For October through January, we're really expecting normal fire potential as a whole for this time of year, which is typically low fire activity. However, the main concerns still at times will be southern Idaho into the northern half of Nevada and into far northwest Utah, as this is where we still have our significant grass loading. And if we see warm and dry conditions followed by very windy events as cold fronts move through and we do have fire starts, these fires could become large fires, seeing rapid growth. However, the growth will likely occur for a burning period or two, and then we typically see cooler temperatures and or some precipitation moving in behind these cold fronts, which would knock down fire potential. So we will still see the potential for large fires as we go through the next few months, but again, these periods where we may see active burning with large fires would be fairly minimal. Looking at the national outlook for the next few months, as you can see, October on the top left into November, generally normal fire potential. We will see some of that above normal fire potential decrease in California and across the northern Rockies, but really normal for the Great Basin. The same holds true for the bottom image, December and January, where any above normal precipitation is over the southern tier of the country. That concludes our briefing. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening.